December 4th, 2007, Naval Special Warfare Development Group's Blue Squadron raided the compound of a high-level Taliban commander in Helmand Province, Afghanistan. Going out on this mission, the team knew this compound was heavily guarded and they were in for a big gunfight. So they brought the whole crew with them, including the team's dog handler William Clark and his furry companion Axe. Clark and his dog Axe had been attached to Blue Squadron for quite some time at this point, but this was their first official big raid target, so the pressure was really on both of them to perform and prove themselves as valuable assets for Development Group. The team was dropped off just a few hundred meters away from the objective by an MH-47 Chinook helicopter courtesy of the Night Stalkers, and as soon as the ramp dropped, gunfire erupted on the team and the helicopter. The operators immediately dumped out of the Chinook and started returning fire on the enemies in the target house. And it didn't take them long to completely silence all the gunfire coming from the building. So the operators then stacked up near the front door of the building and sent Axe in first. The dog was equipped with an IR strobe on his back, so the team could track his every move through their night vision. They watched as the dog entered into the first room and immediately laid down, staring at some rugs. The dog being completely still was his way of telling his teammates that he detected danger. So Clark and the team quickly entered the room and unrolled the rugs, where they found two fully loaded PKM rifles hidden within the rugs. But aside from that, the first building was clear. Then suddenly, the drone providing overwatch for the SEAL team spotted a massive force of enemy soldiers pouring out from the village and surrounding the compound. The team needed to quickly clear the rest of the compound if they were going to be able to kill the target and safely exfil without being overrun. As the team approached the next house in the compound, they conveniently found a small locked doggy door. So they broke open the lock with bolt cutters and sent Axe inside. The operators then stacked up outside the front door and waited silently to hear any ruckus that might be going on inside the building. If they heard absolutely nothing coming from inside the building, it was pretty safe to assume that the whole building was completely clear of any armed hostiles. But on the flip side, if they heard grown men screaming and begging for mercy, it was time for them to make entry. And it didn't take long before they heard those infamous screams. Axe had stumbled upon two men armed with AK-47 rifles. The dog had been well trained to continuously bite enemy combatants over and over and over again to keep them from being able to shoot at him. So when he came face to face with two armed men, he just bounced back and forth between them, biting them both over and over and over again until the operators made their way into the room and dropped both men. As the team stacked up on the next door in the house, Clark quickly grabbed Axe's harness, not letting him go in first. He had a weird feeling about this room and thought the team needed to clear it themselves instead of sending the dog in. It ended up being a fantastic call because the room was absolutely packed full of women and children. And in the chaos and total darkness within the house, the dog would have likely accidentally bitten one of the civilians. But thankfully Clark listened to his gut and no civilians were harmed during the raid. As the team continued to move through the compound and search for the high-valued target, Axe suddenly jumped over a 3-foot wall and began attacking an armed man who was hiding under a blanket. One of the operators quickly leaned over the wall and shot the man once in the head, and then the team continued moving on through the compound. The first compound was now completely cleared with no sign of the main target. The drone overhead reported that the team still had a few minutes until the hostiles from the nearby village reached their position, so they decided to make entry on the compound next door. But as they were crossing a field on their way to the next compound, Clark noticed a man standing behind a tree and sent Axe to go investigate. Axe quickly latched onto the man's arm, and the man attempted to run into the nearby compound with the dog still attached to him. But the man's screams alerted the rest of the compound to the SEAL team's position, and suddenly PKM fire erupted from the building. Clark and the team immediately dropped to the ground, searching for cover in the open field. Bullets were now flying from all directions, and Axe was stuck in the center of it all. Clark could tell that Axe had been hit. He screamed his name at the top of his lungs, and through the chaos, he could see Axe trying desperately to make his way back to the team, but only stumbling and falling down over and over again. So Clark's teammates started laying down cover fire, and Clark got to his feet and took off running through the open field under gunfire to save Axe. Miraculously, he was able to reach Axe without being hit, and he quickly picked him up and ran about 100 yards back behind a small stone wall the team had already cleared. The team's medic immediately met Clark and Axe behind the stone wall to provide medical aid. As the two operators frantically searched through the dog's fur, trying to figure out where he had been hit, they finally noticed steam coming off of his head. Clark touched the top of Axe's skull. He felt bone fragments, exposed skin, and blood. Clark radioed the rest of the team to let them know that Axe had been hit and was down for the night. Completely unfazed by the pain, Axe kept trying to pull away from Clark to get back in the fight. The medic quickly gave Axe a shot of morphine to sedate him, and the operators all dug in tight and defended their position until the evacuation helicopter arrived to take them all home. At the end of the night, the team had killed 15 enemy combatants, and 8 of those 15 were accredited to Clark and Axe. Members of Blue Squadron had openly stated that if it weren't for the actions of Clark and Axe that night, the outcome would have been vastly different. Despite Clark not being a Navy SEAL, but instead a Master-at-Arms Special Operations dog handler, Clark displayed the utmost devotion to his teammates, his working dog Axe, the mission, and the United States Navy. During the hour-long medical flight to Kandahar, Clark began processing the situation his partner Axe was in. At the forward support hospital, Axe was wheeled into the trauma bay. Almost 3 hours had passed since his critical head injury at this point. The veterinarian at the hospital comes in and shockingly looks at Axe and just tells Clark flat out, "I don't know if I can treat this. I've never seen anything like this before." And that was the first time in Clark's career he had nearly lost his composure. The veterinarian told Clark, "I can tell you Axe isn't going to survive much longer. His breathing is too rapid. Soon his organs will shut down and he won't be able to keep up with the pace." Clark knew Axe had just saved their SEAL team. He knew he had to do whatever he could to return the favor for Axe. So Clark ran back to the secluded SEAL compound on Kandahar Airfield and grabbed other Special Forces medics and Air Force pararescuemen. Clark and the medics then quickly ran back to the hospital and started doing everything they could to save Axe's life. One of the medics grabbed a long-acting bronchodilator and mixed it with oxygen and then applied the mask to Axe's face. Within a minute, Axe's breathing was normalized. The next day, Axe was back to his normal, playful self. However, the injury caused him to lose vision in his left eye. In turn, he was deemed non-operational and sent stateside to recover in retirement. Axe would go on to be awarded the Bronze Star with Valor in addition to the Purple Heart for his heroic actions the night of December 4th, 2007. He was medically retired shortly after and spent the next 7 years of his life living a relaxing, joyous life with a veterinarian technician before passing away from bone cancer in 2014. Clark would continue serving in DevGru for the remaining years of his operational career, completing his last deployment in 2015. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to go check out the Patreon for all the uncensored combat footage that I couldn't show here on YouTube and to support the channel. But I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you all in the next